And this Dana 60 after that 80 is just such a diminutive little thing. This diff had served its life, and these gears were done.
This axle is beat like a rented mule.
All right, back on the Dana 60 for the front end of the 715, continuing with tear down, removal of pieces which won't be used and will generally be in our way as we're working on re-gearing this axle. In this case, removing the remainder of the OE brake lines. All right.
Yeah.
And out of the way.
And there's, yeah, we might take the clips off. Or we might reuse them.
We might reuse them. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll have to see when this is all said and done whether a OE brake line would work on the front axle or not.
Yeah. I don't know that I want to reuse those.
I don't want to reuse those, but we could do another OE type.
Or power tools.
Or power tools.
Yeah.
I do agree that these are going to be shock brackets. Bolts will be in our way.
It's interesting, this one is slightly higher than that one.
OE quality control. All right. Let's go ahead and break down the kingpins just to have them. There's a big spring inside this cap.
Yeah.
So.
You need me to catch?
Well, something will need to be caught. I'm not sure what the something is going to be yet, though.
Okay.
And basically, none of that is going to be reused.
Something fell out. Not nearly as much grease as you might want to believe. Well, there is. I suppose that was compressed down quite a bit.
Yeah. So that, well, so given that the bushing is sitting right here, almost flush at the top of the knuckle, that was compressed into the height of that cap.
Yeah.
And so the way this works, we've got a bushing here that sits on the conical kingpin, and that spring pushes the bushing down, and that is what compensates for
as it wears.
The wear of the kingpin as it wears. Bottom side, 4 more bolts. Okay. I half expected that to just drop off.
Oh, the bottom of it here.
It is moving. And that is the bottom kingpin. Little bit of corrosion on that.
Is that a replaceable part?
That is a replaceable part.
Okay.
It needs to be.
And is there a bearing?
And the bearing is actually in the bottom of the C.
Yeah. Okay. Just so hardware doesn't go
Missing.
missing. Okay.
And that is the kingpin.
And a seal.
And the seal. The seal is done. However, the kingpin itself
Looks to be in reasonable shape.
Looks to be in decent shape, which is nice, because replacing that is no fun. Okay, let's do the other one. There it is. And so this will be converted to both a crossover
And
as well as a high steer.
Yeah, and that. Okay, put the bolts right there. There goes the bearing and the
There's
seal.
the bearing and the seal.
Let me hold that.
The one that is right in front of my face. At a glance, it doesn't look too bad.
Now, is there a race in the other side? That,
Yep. That will need to be driven out. So,
Okay. So this whole thing needs driven out.
yep,
Okay.
the race
Race is in there.
the race is behind that. Yep.
Okay.
And then all of that gets replaced. So, on a modern axle, that's ball joint. Knock that out a
So
little bit
that's-
later.
That's another video.
Yeah. So,
Suffice it to say that knuckles are out of the way.
knuckles are out of our way as we deal with the center section. So, next up, we need to arrange for a place to land the carrier.
Which is that table over there that's all full of other junk.
Yeah.
I hate when people leave junk in my workspace. Right? I'm the one leaving junk in my workspace.
One humongous meal later.
In there, where you can see it.
And this Dana 60 after that 80 is just such a diminutive little thing. The good news is this will make this job that much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are a little sticky to come out the first time after they've been in a while.
So the first question you see that? Note there is no case spreader on this. First just grabbing the ring gear here. There is not a whole lot of preload left on these bearings.
Nope. These are probably, well, no, they, it's marked. It was, somebody went through this.
Somebody's been in here at some point. So we'll see what the bearings look like when this comes out. But yeah, that's not much for preload.
Can you grab the wrench? Huh. That's got some interesting wear patterns on it. So you can see kind of weird wear patterns.
Yeah, that's been wobbling a little bit.
Just a little.
So a little more preload than it had when they put it back together.
Well, we'll put it back together with stock bearings with the same
And then
shims and see how easily or difficult it goes in and comes
Right.
out, and maybe add some shim.
if necessary,
If necessary.
to, because yeah. How does the wear pattern on the gear itself look?
Yeah, whoever put this back together didn't do a very good job. Yeah, and there's grooves in a couple of these teeth.
Yeah. So you can, I don't know how well this will show up in the video, but you can see some shadowing. You can see some marks, some actual score marks, some grooves. These gears were not in good shape.
Useful to look at that pattern because we will want to use the original shims as kind of our initial startup, but this tells us a lot about how healthy that setup was. And so, you know, as we think about how we read patterns and make choices, this helps us inform how much credence we put in what was there. So similar conversation. We get kind of in a different position here. We start working at it. Have not touched the nut on this thing yet. You may or may not be able to see it, but you can definitely hear it. So
There is no preload on those
there is
bearings.
no preload on the pinion bearings anymore either, at all. And again, so the pinion would have been wobbling in and out.
And the carrier side to
potentially could have
side.
been wobbling side to side. Yeah, it's no wonder those gears are not a happy wear pattern.
Yeah.
This diff had served its life, and these gears were done.
This axle was beat like a rented mule.
Which seems appropriate to put it in front of a military truck.
Nice.
And more disassembly.
See, now this on the 60, the
Is
socket fits.
yeah, that's how that's supposed to fit.
This is probably maybe a 1350 U-joint.
1350, might be a 1350, could easily be a 1310 or a 1330.
Well, it was on a diesel truck, but it was a 92 diesel truck.
Yeah,
And are you putting a new yoke on this one as well?
yeah.
And what are you going to put on?
1410.
1410? You're not going to do the same yoke that you put on April's 60?
Yeah, she's all 1350, front,
Yeah.
back, rear, everything.
Which is okay for a gas 4-liter.
But I'm thinking with the additional gearing and the big Cummins motor, a little bit more, buys me a bigger buffer to
Yeah.
not be snapping it. Okay, that's solid.
Easy, killer.
Catch. There's the nut. So normally you would not have the pinion take off like that.
Normally.
But okay then.
I'm going.
Pinion's out.
I'm going with this axle is a little worn out.
Seal out. The only thing that's in really well is the seal.
Well,
Okay, I might have to use trick 2 and just
let's drive it out.
drive it out. It was pretty well shot.
No, before you hit that,
Yep.
any evidence that we've got
Shims?
a shim there? No.
No.
So, oh, there they are.
Ah.
At least one.
No, there's 3 at
Okay.
least. So yeah, there were preload shims on.
Bearing. First washer.
Sealing's over there.
And the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, rotate it, knock the last one out.
Well, not the what?
Knock the last brace out.
Well, both the races are still in there.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Races out.
Yep. So, I think the reason the vent tube is plugged
Yeah.
is all the dirt.
This is definitely a farm truck.
Yeah.
Ow.
It's out.
I hit my finger.
And there's a shim on the floor.
It's probably a depth shim.
Yep.
Feel anymore?
Not feeling any more, not seeing anything else attached to the back of this.
Okay.
Oh, there's another one.
Yeah. It's actually 2 or 3. Yeah. So obviously somebody took the time to set up these gears right. I'm just guessing that got got dirt in there.
And worn and worn and worn.
Wore out.
Yep.
And as it wears out, it gets worse. All right, it's officially a Jeep project.
It's drawn blood, huh?
It's drawn blood.
Tell us a story, Roy.
How about the one with the dull pencil? You got a quick knife or a sharpener? Then I'm getting shavings on my workspace.
All over your shims in your workspace, yeah.
Some inconsiderate people, I tell you. That's bad. So we're going to start kind of with the assumption that that this axle had been set up properly originally. Because if you look at it, I mean, they've got all of these pinion depth shims, including one really thin one that says they did a fair amount of work to make sure that they got the pinion depth just right. They've got the preload shims on there that said they probably tested it for preload and got it right, even though when we were taking it apart we discovered that the axle had been neglected, to say the least. So we're going to assume that everything was good when the bearings were new and good, and use that as our starting point. And so first thing we have to do is measure exactly what they had set up. And so we use our nice calipers and we measure out what the thickness of each shim is. For a total of 51 thousandths.
Got a Ziploc bag here labeled pinion,
Yep.
where we will keep all of the originals until we are done.
And that way, if there's any question, we know where the originals are. They're not getting mixed in with everything else. All right. So I wanted to take a break here real quick before we start taking things too far apart and talk about the oil slinger. This is basically a very large washer on the pinion, and you notice it goes between the bearing and the pinion head. And as the name suggests, the purpose of this thing is to sling oil. And it has to do with the configuration of this housing. So Dodge and Chevy decided when they were doing their Dana 60s that they would use a standard rotation, regular old Dana 60, normal low pinion, and all they did was turn it around and put it on the front axle. So in the rear configuration, when the ring gear is spinning, it's going to use science magic, surface tension really. It just takes the oil and slings it around, and if you come in here real quick, you can see the whole point of slinging the oil around is that it's supposed to come down in here into this hole, and that's what lubricates the pinion bearings, and the oil will return back through the bearing. It'll come out and get recycled, and so you need fresh oil in there. Well, when you turn the axle housing around and it's running down the road in reverse, the carrier, it's still going to sling some oil up, but it's going to want to carry a lot of the oil around to the front and just do a big circle, and it's not going to get back in here. So what this does, and the race is out, so it's not going to spin really easy, but it turns
as you're going down the road. Which way does it turn? I think it turns this way.
Yeah.
Yes. And the surface tension pulls oil up and kind of forces oil to get up and splash around up into the pinion oil cavity to keep the bearings lubricated. And that's why you see on a front bearing or a front pinion
The oil slinger.
the oil slinger. And so it's very important on a front bearing or a front pinion to make sure this goes back in when it's a low pinion. Now, the Ford front axles use a high pinion reverse rotation gear set, and they actually completely redesigned the housing. The gears are physically different. The carriers are the same, the bearings are the same, but the gear set and the housing layout is completely different, and it actually is designed to get oil back into where the pinion is
Differently. All right. Now the other set of shims on these live between the bearing and the carrier, down in this little space right here.
You can't quite see.
And so, in order to determine what those shims were, or are, to use them as our starting point, we have to remove the bearing. Now, a lot of ways this can be done, involving cutting wheels and other entertaining or not entertaining, as the case may be, options. This is a tool specifically for pulling these bearings.
And you see, this inner part is the actual carrier. This middle part is the inner race of the bearing that's going to be removed, and then the cage. It's kind of self-centering. Yeah. Better power tool would be faster. They're clear.
No shims left stuck to the bottom of the bearing there,
Which does happen quite a bit.
which can happen. And so there is the non-ring gear carrier shim set.
It's time to measure.
These can stick together, so be very careful. Make sure you get them, every one of them, apart. Somebody spent a lot of time figuring this out. So I want to believe that they put it together right the first time. And it's just neglect that caused all the problems in that differential. Yeah, everything about how this axle was put together says I was done right.
Somebody tried.
Or, yeah, somebody tried at least. And so, you know, not blaming anyone for...
But it's also why I didn't mind taking a first-gen Dodge and saying I'm going to harvest this as...
Yeah, because you hate to see a first-gen Dodge go to the scrapyard unless it's beat that badly.
420.
Okay, so 42 thousandths on one side,
Yep, on the non-ring.
the non-ring side. Non-ring bag. Non-ring bag. Because yeah, we do not want to mix these. And so we're just going to repeat the process for the ring gear side, and we're not going to bore you with more repetitive process.